What is up, guys? My name is RJ. This is the Secret Stacks, and today I want to have a conversation about our relationships with publishers as booktubers, reviewers, and authors, and how that can compromise our ability to be the change that we want to see and be better members of the bookish community. So, if you guys have been on Twitter at all in the last week, you have probably heard about The Continent. But if you haven't, The Continent is a YA debut by Kira Drake that's slated for release in January 2017. Now, normally that would be pretty unremarkable news, with the exception that some people that got ARC review copies of the book really found a lot of problems with it. Not only was it vaguely problematic, but specifically the charges were it was extremely racist and insensitive. Now, I have not read a copy of this book, so I don't feel confident or comfortable being the one breaking down these issues, especially because so many other people that I respect in the community have done it better and they have read the book. So I'll direct to some of those conversations down in the links below. No one has hesitated to let the author know that this is a really problematic book, and that's a good thing because that's the only way, by having these conversations, that authors specifically, but also authors in general who are seeing the conversation, that's the only way we're going to learn from this. But there's a second part of this conversation that's not happening, and the reason that it's not happening is because, frankly, those of us in positions of power in the community are wimps. And there's no nicer way for me to put it. We're wimps and we're letting the community down. Now, every criticism of the book I've seen has been directed at the author, and that's fair because ultimately it is the author's responsibility. It's their name on the book, and they are the ones who control the story from beginning to end. But we're leaving somebody out of this conversation, somebody that needs to hear this message. Nobody's talking about who the publisher is, and just to let you know, it's Harlequin, and it's absurd that they have not been tagged, that they have not been part of this discourse, because ultimately, yes, the author wrote the book, but time and again, Harlequin, they bought the book, they edited the book, then they gave the book the green light. Those are three specific stages where they looked at the book, and not only did they say that it's okay, but they said that we wanted it. This is something that they put their name on, that they chose at every step of the process. So Harlequin bears at least as much, if not more, responsibility for this book. Because honestly, there were 500,000 books, just guessing, published in the last year, especially with self-publishing. And guess what? I guarantee you some of those books are problematic. Some of them are racist, some of them are sexist. Just by pure numbers game, people are writing problematic books. But ultimately, if there are going to be gatekeepers, if that's the point of publishing, them to select the books that are worthy to be published, then ultimately the buck stops with them, and they deserve to be the ones being called out for it, and they're not. And here's why. Too many members of the book community are afraid to get on the publisher's bad side. We've become so interwoven and dependent on these publishers that it's preventing us from doing what I consider our moral duty as reviewers, as authors, as any part of this community, to stand up and say, all right, this isn't right. At the end of the day, I understand it. If you're a reviewer, you have a relationship with these publishers. That's how you get these ARC reviews. And it's hard to stand up and say, I'm sorry, and call somebody out, especially when it could possibly mean that you're taken off the ARC list. You're not getting those advanced copies. Or maybe that means you don't get the author interviews. You don't get invited to the special events. And ultimately, that decision falls on each and every individual. They have to decide what and how much is worth it. And it's just as bad, if not worse, in the author community. Because again, this is a publisher. They are the gatekeepers. And there's only 5 big publishers left. You piss off one, and that cuts off 20%. That gives you a 20% less chance to sell your book. This hits both aspiring authors and established ones. I mean, there is a roster of authors at Harlequin, and I haven't heard any of them stand up and talk about it, which is understandable because it puts them in an awkward position. But even outside of those authors at Harlequin, you're not seeing very many other authors standing up as well. I mean, some of them are trying to keep their options open. Maybe Harlequin could be their publisher down the line, even if it's not now. Maybe they're afraid because Harlequin is not the only publisher that has screwed up like this in the past, and they won't be the only one moving forward. So what if it comes around back to their publisher? If they speak out now but don't when it's in their house, how are they going to look then? And the fact is that Harlequin Teen is just one cog in a really interconnected machine. There aren't a lot of options for those authors who aren't prepared to take a risk. And ultimately, that's what it comes down to, an individual's decision for each and every one of us, whether we're willing to take a risk. And I'm at the point where I am. I don't do ARC reviews for a reason, because I feel like that compromises my ability to talk completely openly and honestly with you guys. And yes, I am an author now, and that has made me consider whether I want to make this video, but ultimately I have a little bit of freedom because my publisher is an Amazon imprint, and frankly, all the other publishers hate Amazon anyway, so I'm in good company there. But also, I'm so fortunate to live in a time in publishing where I don't need these gatekeepers to give me permission to put my book out there. If I have a story I want to tell and a publisher doesn't want to pick me up for something I said, fine, I'm going to self-publish it. So that's where I stand, and I absolutely understand if you're not there. And ultimately, it's Kira Drake's responsibility to write a good book. It's Harlequin Teen's responsibility to publish a good book. But finally, we are the last line of defense. We need to use our platforms to encourage the good books that are created and to call out when the industry, when the publishers, when the authors are not giving us what the community deserves. Because if we don't do it, nobody else is going to. And it's completely unfair. Every time one of these conversations comes up, we're leaving it to the people of color in the community, to women in the community. Whatever the issue is, there's a huge majority of us that are staying silent, or we're only taking the safest route to comment on an issue because we don't want to offend the monoliths of power that are the publishers. But I'm curious what you guys think, so let me know down in the comments below what you think we can do as book reviewers, as readers, as authors, to shake the status quo and really bring positive change to the publishing industry. Until next time, see ya.